Good evening. It's August 23rd, 2026. Summer is winding down, and you are watching Last Week Today. We're a compilation of the most important stories of the week from both legacy and new media. And my name's Chuck Black. My partner in crime tonight is the very suave and debonair Richard Gagnon. Richard, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. It's a cool day here. That's just why I'm wearing the warmer jacket.
Your smoking jacket.
Yeah. Well, we had massive storms here in the last 20
You have
years.
what?
We had massive storms.
Like what?
Oh, it was just unbelievable. Last night there, we had rolling thunder. for
Okay.
about an hour. And then all of a sudden, massive amount of rain came down.
Oh
Um,
dear.
Stopped, and then today when I went to town, there was a tree that I passed, big old tree. It looks like lightning hit it, and it just blew it apart.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And
Now we don't continue.
then we had another big storm today, more rolling thunder.
Hmm.
I went in to take a shower at Ross Creek, and when I came out, it was just pouring rain, so I had a second shower.
Now I heard the weather was really weird up there. There's still some lightning storms. There's still some fires going on. But in a case like that, I imagine the rain would be good, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm hoping that they get rid of the fire ban very soon.
The fire ban in your area, you're not allowed to make fires.
Yeah, we're not allowed to have open fires.
Yeah, I can see how that'd be nice to get rid of.
Yeah, because then we can sit outside and enjoy the campfires at night.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Shall we go on to our first piece?
Absolutely, because I got a
It's
6 o'clock dinner engagement.
Yeah, we're gonna whiz through this tonight because you have a hot date. That's why you're in your smoking jacket.
Yeah, I'm just going over to visit with a whole bunch of friends in the community.
Let's go on to our first piece. It's the story everybody's been talking about the last 2 days. There is a Canada-U.S. trade war going on right now. And as most of us already know, late Friday night, that's August 21st, the ongoing negotiations between Canada and the United States broke down when U.S. President Donald Trump introduced last-minute demands that Prime Minister Mark Carney called unfair, uneconomic, and infringing on Canadian sovereignty. That is, of course, the story from Prime Minister Mark Carney. And of course, we don't know the specifics of the demands Carney insisted were scuttling the trade negotiations over. But we do know that the U.S., as soon as it heard this, immediately proceeded to impose 50% tariffs under Section 338 of the Smoot-Hawley Act. And they were imposed upon approximately $28 billion worth of Canadian goods. And on Sunday morning, Carney retaliated by suspending all trade negotiations, and he ordered Canadian negotiators back to Ottawa. He then vowed dollar for dollar retaliatory measures, which he won't announce yet, but will announce sometime before September 8th. That gives him 2 weeks to figure them out. The August 22nd, the big picture with Haber Upe on YouTube post under the title 87,000 Jobs Gone. Let's see if that's on here. Yeah, that's the main title for that video. The video notes that while no one really knows what's going to happen next, everyone expects job losses. Here we go, the first video.
Trade negotiations between Canada and the United States have collapsed. We're not doing the full breakdown today, that's coming Monday. But there's one number we can't wait until Monday to give you, because by then it may already be buried underneath the politics, the finger pointing and everything else that's about to happen. Good day, Canada. Haver Upley here. You've heard the news, you've read the headlines. And now it's time to see the big picture. Quick one today. Here's what's actually on the table right now and what it means for your province specifically. University of Calgary economist Trevor Tome ran the actual math on the current 50% tariffs this week, and here's what he found. In his own words, over 52,000 jobs in Canada are directly at risk. Add the suppliers and service providers standing behind those exporters, another 35,000, and you get a little over 87,000 jobs nationally. He rounds that to nearly 90,000. Unemployment, currently 6.4%, could climb to roughly 6.8%. Trevor is upfront about the limits of that math. He's assuming, for simplicity, that a 50% tariff produces something close to a 50% drop in affected sales. His own words, overly simplistic but enough to get a ballpark figure. He also says plainly that precise numbers are difficult because nobody yet knows whether businesses will treat this as permanent or temporary, and that changes everything about how they respond. Here's where it lands using his own calculations from Statistics Canada's input-output tables. Ontario carries the largest share, 36.1 thousand jobs. Quebec, 18.3 thousand. British Columbia, 11.2 thousand. Alberta, 9,000. And here's the detail worth sitting with tonight. Alberta's own direct exports are barely touched by this round of tariffs. We're not the target. But we still lose jobs because the trucking, the warehousing, the professional and technical work that supports exporters everywhere else in this country doesn't stop needing people just because Alberta itself dodged the direct hit. Saskatchewan and Manitoba show the same pattern, smaller scale, roughly 2,000 jobs each, barely touched directly, still absorbing real losses. You can be the province least exposed to a tariff and still feel it. That's the number. 87,000 jobs nationally by one economist's own careful and openly imperfect math. 9,000 of those in Alberta, in a province the tariffs weren't even aimed at. We didn't want this getting lost this week under everything else moving in this story. On Monday, we're going to give you the full picture. What actually broke the deal, what it's costing households, and a much bigger number sitting inside Canada's own economy that nobody needed Washington's permission to fix. For today, just sit with this one. And now, you see the big picture. If you like this episode, click that bell at the top right corner of your screen to follow us for daily news, Monday through Friday. Haber Upley, signing out.
Richard, what do you think?
Tariffs. They don't do a damn thing to us anyways.
They're not going to cost us any money, although they might lay off some people in Canadian businesses. Haber mentioned about 90,000.
Yeah, that's just because of the fear point that they're trying to put onto people.
Could very well be. Well be. It's a dramatic presentation. There's AI involved in there developing the script. The graphics are all AI. Who knows where it originated from?
Yeah, exactly. To me, it just doesn't make any sense as to why they make such a big deal out of it. Because I've been talking tariffs for quite a while.
Good point. The tariffs are the biggest story. I had trouble finding other stories that weren't tariffs this weekend, and that was. I kind of thought that was wild, and it seemed like an artificial story, slowly being delivered by legacy media over time. Even Haber talked about how he's going to talk more about this on Monday. Carney said that he'll have his response to the American demand sometime before September 8th. So we're all expected to tune in next week, same bat channel, same bat time for the latest update. And you're probably absolutely correct about that.
Well, tariffs are just such a waste of time. They mean nothing. People, they mean nothing at all. It's just a fear tactic that they're using.
Well, I think they seem to have resonance with marketing people.
Well, they do. Yeah. And of course, they're going to make it as big as they can. But the thing is that they're not going to hurt you. Not at all. Not at all.
Maybe not. But I think the legacy media wants us to think the breakdown in trade talks marks a dramatic escalation in the trade war between Canada and the U.S. And they want us to believe there are significant economic implications for both nations, which we haven't seen up until now, unless you count the increased inflation, which you and I think might be caused by other things. I don't think it's necessarily related to the trade talks. But the argument goes that the auto sector, the steel sector, the aluminum sector face immediate disruption because 50% tariffs. And Carney is positioning himself as refusing to accept a bad deal. And now he can stand up proud and tall because he had rallied domestic support. But he also raises questions about what he actually did and whether or not Canadians approve of what he has done. Now, Canada's Prime Minister has previously referred to U.S. actions or demands as infringing on or threatening Canadian sovereignty in several contexts. And this seems to be his primary reason for breaking the trade talks. And Canadian sovereignty in this instance seems to be primarily related to trade negotiations with other countries like China, economic pressure, and political comments made by the Trump administration. Now, one of those countries, the U.S., is hoping to discourage from forging new trade deals with Canada is exactly as I outlined before, China. Now, as outlined in the January 16th Canadian Affairs Post, experts cautious on Canada's deepening China ties. And according to that post, the Canadian Prime Minister visited Beijing in January 2026 and worked out a big deal, substantially reducing Chinese electric vehicle tariffs down to 6.1% from 100%. So Chinese EVs can compete with Canadian EVs and be allowed entry into the Canadian market. And he did this in exchange for China reducing canola seed tariffs from 85% down to 15% because China wants canola. And also, Ottawa promised to increase Canadian exports to China 50% by 2013. And these points, this trade deal is something the Americans dislike, mostly because they're already in a trade war with China, and they perceive that Canada is China's ally now, no longer the U.S.'s ally. And to be fair, Carney isn't acting like an ally. He has promised to outline Canada's dollar for dollar tariff response by September 8th. He's buying for time. He doesn't quite know what's going to happen, but I would guess we're not going to get American liquor back in the LCBOs. Now, there is also something else that came down yesterday. It's the August 22nd, 2026 Ezra Levant on X post, and it's titled Motive. In 2019, Mark Carney was the head of the Bank of England, and he called for the end of the US dollar as the global reserve currency. He also spoke of a new world order and suggested the Chinese renminbi as a successor to the US dollar. And to be fair, Levant obviously believes that both Carney and the US remember this 2019 paper, and Carney is acting in congruence with what he wrote back in 2019. Richard, more comments?
I don't speak Chinese, so I guess I couldn't be part of the 24th province.
Well, I don't speak French very well either.
Anyways, all that talk is just talk. We have been the 51st state for a long time.
Yes.
It's just that because of the fact that we've been bankrupt, just like the United States, but we have been the 51st state.
Mm-hmm.
There's people who disagree with me. Well, disagree with me, but it's the truth.
And I think we have essentially lived in a free trade regime that facilitates closer and closer political connections between Canada and the U.S. And I find it odd that Carney wants to break down those connections. Historically, I do understand that Canada has always tried to put itself between two great powers, so it has some wiggle room and it can decide what it wants to do. But I think we're too close to to the United States to legitimately concede China as being the other great power we're stuck in the middle of. Later on in this broadcast, I might show some evidence showing that Carney does want to move closer to China, and we've already shown some evidence of that. So I don't know, Richard. Any more comments?
That doesn't matter. Anything that's made in China is CCP, cheap Chinese products.
It is indeed. We're going to talk about that later on tonight too.
Well, I'm not gonna be buying Chinese anytime soon. I'm not even gonna buy American. I'm just gonna buy Canadian.
Maybe that's the best way to do it, dude.
However, I have to be careful. A lot of these Canadian companies are being bought by a Chinese, and now they'll be Chinese companies.
Yeah, I can see that. Shall we go on to our next piece?
Sure.
Also in the news this week, there are other reasons why the Canadian government could be attempting to favor China over the U.S. Now, as outlined in the August 12th Asia Times post, why China's war on deflation is faltering in real time, China faces persistent low inflation and substantial deflationary pressures from weak domestic demand, a prolonged property downturn, and industrial overcapacity. And this is something I didn't know about China, but China has been going through economic problems much the way Canada and the U.S. and the rest of the Western world is also going on. Now, in July 2026, the Chinese cost of living rose just 5% year over year. That's the slowest in like months and months. And it's an ongoing pattern that's gone back the last 3 or 4 years. And this is according to the August 10th National Bureau of Statistics of China post under the title Consumer Price Index in July 2026. And that document noted that food, especially pork, and housing rent were dropping through the floor. They were in sustained deflation. Food was going down. It was cheaper month over month. Housing was going down. It was cheaper month over month. It also noted retail sales and investment were soft. They're not going up, but they're not going down. While households and firms show limited appetite for credit despite loose monetary policy. And that to me means that China wants these companies to grow, but the firms don't see any demand for their products, so they're not grabbing hold of the free money. Now, growth was around 4.3% in Q2, in second quarter, 4.3%. It seems to be almost entirely exports, including high-tech goods like the computers you and I are using, and a lot of other technology, and cars for all it's worth, EVs. Now, this contrasts sharply with the United States, where inflation remained elevated above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. I think it's up at 3.4% according to the graphic. July 2026 cost of living was about 3.4% year on year, compared to 0.5% in China. It was driven mostly by energy, sticky services, and shelter costs. Shelter costs are going down in China, but they're going up fast in the U.S. And they call it residual tariff effects, but they don't know what it means. And there's also an AI-related demand for tech and equipment. An AI bubble. Anthropic and all those other nut bars are buying huge amounts of technology, and they're going to crash and burn soon. But for now, they're scooping up everything they can. Core inflation, I don't know what that means, but core inflation, I think that's the government's definition of if everything goes right. Core inflation is still 2.5%, still way higher than the Chinese. Now, the Fed has held rates steady for as long as I can remember. Unlike China, which keeps dropping the interest rates, and they've gone into negative territory at this point. Now, it's worth noting that for China, for Canada, I mean, China offers notable benefits, including cheaper electronics, machinery, cheaper appliances, cheaper solar panels, cheaper batteries, and cheaper electric vehicles. Now, Canada's commodity exports, energy, minerals, copper, iron ore, and some agri products like canola continue to sit well in China. And this is an interesting piece right here, the August 19th World Around You on YouTube post under the title, The Involution Trap, How Hyper Competition Causes Deflation. It provides a quick overview of Chinese deflationary effects. Here we go. It's just a minute and a half. It's pretty interesting.
Neizhuan, or economic involution, is destroying China's industrial value. But how does it start? It originally described overworked youth, but now it threatens the entire manufacturing sector. Take an electric vehicle factory churning out thousands of cars for just a handful of buyers. Pushed by government subsidies to hit local growth targets, the factory blindly expands. This creates massive overcapacity, where the supply of vehicles completely dwarfs consumer demand. To clear this massive inventory and survive, the factory aggressively slashes the retail price, pushing it far below the actual cost to manufacture the car. But how does a business avoid bankruptcy while losing money on every single sale? They survive by ruthlessly squeezing their suppliers and slashing their own workers' pay. Here is where the destructive loop closes. This relentless cost-cutting drains the workers' wallets. Now the employees themselves can no longer afford the cars they make. This shrinks the buyer pool even further, forcing the factory into yet another desperate price cut. With domestic buyers completely tapped out and inventory still piling up, the factory's only survival mechanism is to dump these excess vehicles overseas. And that destroyed domestic demand is exactly why those artificially cheap vehicles are flooding global markets today.
Now, this tells me that China is dropping Canada's inflation percentage by maybe 1 percentage point. That's about a third based upon what the formal inflation rate is. That's why we can say, but why is the food so expensive? The food's expensive, but automobiles aren't. Does that make any sort of sense, Richard?
Yeah, I have absolutely none. But you can at least, now you can get out to go pay for the expensive food.
Yeah, you can go drive to the restaurant.
Yeah.
But that could be a reason why Canada wants to make friends with China. It helps tamp down inflation. Also, Canada's partnership with China provides a counterweight to U.S. dominance in so many areas around here. And there's also that money China keeps sending to Canadian politicians. That helps us a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, got to pay for the politicians.
I mean, who's going to pay for the politicians? Certainly it's not the people anymore. We pay them crap. They're worth millions and millions of dollars to the right business.
Yeah, they're commodity.
Yeah. But I don't know. Any comments before I wind up this section?
No, just be aware that CCP stands for cheap Chinese products.
And it does. And now we know why the products are cheap.
Yep.
At least we have some idea. Like I said, Chinese disinflation acts as a modest restraint that can ease cost pressures for Canadian consumers. And I also think it's important to note pieces like the October 20th Zero Hedge post, Doom Loop Engage. The U.S. debt hits $40 trillion as Treasury enters the end game. And that piece strongly suggests that the U.S. economy is starting to come apart at the seams. And then there's something else which isn't generally all that well known, but Carney knows about it. As outlined in the August 19th, 2026, the Rewrite Post, Canada-Chinese media agreement looks increasingly creepy. That post notes that the trade wasn't the only thing Carney talked about with the Chinese leaders during his January 2026 visit. Now, the Rewrite references the January 16th, this document here, the joint statement on Canada-China leaders meeting, which noted that the two countries have consented to provide mutual support and convenience for media to work in each other's countries and provide greater convenience for two-way travel. And the Post also notes that since the joint statement was signed, the Chinese government has engaged in a number of raids on both bookstores and news outlets. And a whole bunch of other Canadians have complained about this document and the Chinese actions, not just in the Rewrite, but in other publications which have immediately flagged largely unreported portions of the agreement as being deeply problematic to freedom of the press and Canadian values. So I would suggest that Carney actually likes China, particularly for the authoritarian government and the lack of bookstores. Any comments to that?
Yeah, well, the bookstores, it's not a big deal. I mean, you get everything on the internet. Of course, if the internet's completely controlled by Carnage, then you're only going to be allowed to see what he wants you to see.
Yeah, I kind of like books because books are hard copies that cannot be adjusted easily.
Right.
I mean, Atlas Shrugged, you can take out whole chapters anytime you want using a bot.
Yeah. I mean, I still order some books. I don't order books like I used to. I used to have a massive library of books, and they were primarily technology books. But the thing is, that I had a big collection of them.
Yeah.
Some customers, when they come over to see how their product was being developed, they would watch me going through books.
Yeah.
And finding information in the books, and they'd say, "Oh, geez, it's all in there." I said, "Yeah, of course it is, but you got to look for it." Now, when I go looking for stuff, I just basically do it on the internet. It's much faster.
Yeah, I like books as a backup. I don't have as many as I used to.
Yeah.
A lot of my books were political treatises, and I kind of miss that. I wish I had more books.
I'm glad I don't, because I moved too many times.
Fair comment. Books are hard to move.
Oh, yeah.
I want to move on to our next piece. We're halfway through. Meanwhile, tonight, the National Citizens Inquiry was in High River, Alberta. Last week, mostly, 18th to the 20th, focused as outlined in the October 14th Western Wheel post on the state of Canadian agriculture. Now, this hasn't necessarily been an easy trip. And as outlined in the August 20th Canadian Shareholder News on Substack post, press room, more national citizen inquiry, food security, and farmer safety testimonies. That Substack notes that coverage of the hearing was almost non-existent, except for one or two agricultural and specialty farmer outlets. It doesn't seem to have received any real attention from any legacy media outlet, and hasn't received any attention from a lot of new media outlets. So I thought this was a little bit odd, since on June 7th of this year, the federal government released its National Food Security Strategy, and the August 3rd Globe and Mail post on Canada's new food security strategy won't end food insecurity there should be more coverage on this topic because there's a food security strategy and there's people who disagree with the food security strategy, and the National Citizens Inquiry could be a part of this. But for all it's worth, the full NCI testimony from High River is online on Rumble. We'll include a link to it in our show notes, and I suggest checking it out. It's likely worth far more than the government's position paper or the Globe and Mail's response. Comments?
Yeah, the food security stuff is really rather interesting. People, don't be scared. Just because these headlines sound fearful, there is no lack of food in Canada.
Good God, that frightens the crap out of me.
Yeah, no, we've got really good supply. We've got very good production. We can grow our own. And more people are putting up greenhouses to get the 365 grow ops going.
So they're working outside the pharma boards and the meat boards and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, you don't have to buy into what the bureaucrats are telling you. They're just basically trying to manifest the fear.
I do agree with that. Although I would argue that there is a subset of food in Canada available at grocery stores, which contains a lot of bad stuff, and we'd be best off not having any of it.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to be careful as to what you choose.
Yeah, fair enough. Here is continue.
I went to shopping today for food, and walking through the grocery store, I said, okay, well, there's a whole pile of stuff here. I just chose, I didn't want to buy some stuff because it ends up going bad. So I figured, well, I'm going to be very cautious. There's no point in rushing myself into all this stuff.
Yeah, fair comment. I do agree that we should not have a food shortage. Although by the same token, I notice that I have beef less often than I should. So there is substantial inflationary pressure on beef and meat and chicken.
Well, I do agree with you on that because I don't buy beef that often. And of course, chicken, well, I don't bother with it right now. Pork is another one I won't touch right now.
Okay.
But the beef, I looked at the steaks and I said, $24 for a big steak. Well, that's okay. I'd probably spend on that. But it's not a healthy steak. It's full of GMO.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. If you want a good steak, you get it from one of the local farmers.
That's right. Yeah.
Shall we go on?
Absolutely.
We have a good story right now. Anthony Fauci's former senior advisor, a gentleman named David Morans, has pled guilty to conspiracy to defraud the U.S. for his activities related to burying COVID-19 records to avoid Freedom of Information Act requests during the period 2020 to 2024, I think it was. Now, as noted in the August 19th Cryptagon post, former Fauci associate David Morans pleads guilty to conspiracy. Morans was one of the key figures in burying the COVID records. He was referred to the Department of Justice by Rand Paul, the senator who got Fauci to testify, and as the first person who has been convicted of a crime, and hopefully there are more coming down the pipeline in the very near future. Richard?
Yeah, I hope so too. Fauci should be shouldn't even go to jail. He should be put in front of the firing squad. He doesn't deserve to live.
I would argue that evidence exists to show he killed millions of people through his edicts.
Yep, not to mention the beagles that he killed.
He was a virtual one-man Holocaust.
Yep, yeah, he was very good at doing Hitler stuff, the Hitler doctrine.
I'm glad that the noose is tightening, but you're right. There should be far more than one person convicted for the sins.
Yep, Absolutely.
Anyway, here we go. Let's wait and see what happens in the future. We have another interesting piece tonight. CTV, the Canadian Television Network, is demanding that right-leaning independent media and content creators stop using CTV clips of their news broadcasts in the Independent's videos. But as outlined in the August 23rd Northern Perspective on YouTube post under the title, CTV News Targeting Independent Media, Court Action Imminent if they don't back down, the CTV continues to steal clips from independent producer Northern Perspective for its news broadcasts, which is kind of funny. Anyway, Northern Perspective is going to go to court to get CTV to back off. Anyway, here's a short segment of their video on the topic.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. And the problem is that one of the mainstream media broadcasters is coming after Northern Perspective. They're coming after Wyatt Claypool, and they're probably coming after other independent creators for using footage that they've actually used in their broadcasts. Now, this is a problem because one of the tenets of news and one of the tenets of online independent creators is that you borrow clips from each other, comment on it, provide your own spin on it, and provide your own feedback on it in order to transform it and give people a different perspective. Hence the pun. But what CTV is doing is they are all of a sudden coming after independent creators for using clips out of their news broadcasts that everybody else has used. So when it comes to this specific issue, we put out this video. So this was a video that we talked about the trade war. We talked about some of the different broadcasters talking about it. And one of the clips that we used was from CTV's Vashi Capellos. She gave her take on that. It's about 76 seconds of that video. And this video that we put out was about 17 minutes long. And the broadcast that we took this from was 23 minutes long. But CTV filed a copyright claim against our channel, trying to take all of the revenue that we were earning off this video.
Now, if we thought that we had done something wrong and used their footage in a manner that is not protected under the law, then we would have either deleted the video or just accepted the copyright claim. But we don't think that's the issue here. We think that CTV is falsely claiming their footage in our video, even though it falls under fair dealing, which is protected by Canadian law.
So what is fair dealing? This is fair dealing, folks. Basically what it means is that you're allowed to take a piece of footage, you're allowed to criticize it, and you're allowed to comment on it, as long as you attribute who the author is and where you got it from. And that's what we do in every single one of our videos. Now, this isn't the first time we've used CTV's clips. Hopefully it won't be the last time. But CTV also uses clips from other sources as well,
including Northern Perspective.
They actually used our clip from the Pierre Poilievre interview when all of the mainstream media was going after Pierre last fall, and they used it here. But they also used it here. Here's 8 more videos that they used it in. And here's 8 more videos that they've used it in. They used it in 17 different videos, and some of which were actually extremely short, where 75% of the video was our clip.
Right, and unfortunately, legally, under fair dealing, they can do that. Now, the fact that they took it out of context and all that aside, different issue, but when they use clips without permission and build a story around it, that is permitted under fair dealing.
So what has happened with this video is there's a process, which I won't go into because it's too long, where you go back and forth between the original author of this trying to claim it and then the person actually using it. Well, we're at a point now, folks, where the last part of this process is we submitted one more appeal citing the law. They rejected that, and now we have 7 days. At the end of that 7 days, if we do nothing, then what will happen is Bell will have that video taken down. and all of the revenue will disappear. And if we then issue a counter notification, what will happen is we will say to Bell, see you in court. And they then have to provide proof to YouTube that they have filed a lawsuit in a court of law in order to come after us for copyright violation. Now, we're not the only ones.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's typical. Everybody's got to fight for this. Everybody wants to fight to get copyrights on their words.
CTV seems to be worse than most.
Yes.
Keep in mind, I stole a clip from Northern Perspective to illustrate what's going on, and I don't expect they're going to sue me. If we say good comments, they may call up and say good comments, but who knows what they're going to say?
Exactly.
I can't help but note that there's also the August 19th post on X on LinkedIn as well, under the title "Return of the News Hawker." And that post notes that while once anyone could become a journalist, legacy media outlets now slag those uneducated journalists, blame them for being extreme conservatives, and accuse them of competing for attention instead of accuracy. Of course, they're competing for attention far more successfully than CTV, but it's really obvious, at least this week, CTV doesn't seem to like the new media. Does this bother you, Richard?
I don't know. Those guys are such a pain. I mean, if they want to steal my stories, well, of course, I'm not stealing anybody's stories. I'm broadcasting other independent journalists' stories.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I broadcast it for them. I provide them another outlet.
And that gives you probably a bigger audience than most of what CTV gets.
Well, yeah, I think so. I don't know. I'm not watching the numbers on that stuff. I just say, okay, fine. Whatever happens, happens.
Two more quick pieces before we wind up for tonight's episode. Maybe we'll get you to your party on time. One thing I wanted to talk about regarding legacy media, there is a new kid on the block. These are called AI microdramas, artificial intelligence microdramas, mostly Chinese, mostly short form, mostly vertical, episodic series of typically 60 to 100 seconds per episode, with up to 50 or 100 episodes are designed for viewing on your phone. And they evolved from China Duanji. These are short dramas which exploded in popularity and revenue over the last 3 or 4 years. They've reached billions globally, and they have since expanded rapidly to the US, mostly through TikTok, and into other markets. Now, in the US alone, microdramas are projected to generate about $1.5 billion in revenue in 2026, with monthly active users more than doubling to around 66 million people, all working on AI programs, all creating these little micro dramas that seem to have a lot in common with Hollywood serials from the 1930s, you know, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, the old Westerns that go for 160 seconds or for 180 seconds. And I find this fascinating. And for more on the topic, it's worthwhile checking out the July 21st, 2026 NBC on YouTube post. AI is writing, acting, and producing China's mini dramas, and it's shaking up a $14 billion a year industry. Here we go.
I get the feeling something's watching me. Microdramas, or Duanju, are short-form video series made to be watched on a phone. With rapid twists and over-the-top storylines, they've become addictive viewing in China. But earlier this year, a new player entered the picture: artificial intelligence.
People who watch mini drama, actually, they can easily change to watch AI mini drama. and they don't care. They don't make the distinction between real people and AI characters.
Most of them, they don't care.
If AI-generated actors like Tilly Norwood point to entertainment's future, China's microdrama industry is showing how quickly it's unfolding. In Zhengzhou, considered the vertical filming capital here, studios built inside office towers and shopping malls, often with government subsidies, are now doing less. American actor Anina Net was in China for a few years of the microdrama boom.
Suddenly now, boom, everything is AI. Everybody's sitting home. Everybody is thinking, how is this going to go forward?
It's not to say that AI has completely erased the need for live action here. Actor Liu Yang says his work is picking up. I think as long as phones exist, things like short videos will always have an audience, he says.
What do you think? It's a $14 billion a year industry now. It's completely ignored by Hollywood. And I've checked the costs of the programs. You can get a program that'll build you an AI video for like $1,000 these days.
Yeah.
And I bet you could download bootleg copies of them off the dark web for almost nothing.
Oh, probably, yeah.
What do you think of the competition?
Well, it's interesting. I've watched some of those, and actually, I think a lot of those can be found on Facebook Reels.
Yes, I remember that as well. Yes.
So the Reels, they're being created by people, normal people like you and I.
Yeah.
And they put them up there. They're not maybe not them making great revenues off of it, but the thing is that they're able to produce their story.
Mm-hmm.
I like to hear their story, and I like to replay their story. So capturing their story and putting it onto my show, it just gives them more exposure.
No, I agree, and this is the the sandbox for future movie producers, future long form documentary makers. This is something that we should encourage. I don't like anything that Hollywood's done for the last 10 years. And maybe this is what's going to replace Hollywood.
Right. Well, Hollywood is not going to last much longer in the form it has in the past.
No, I agree with that.
Hollywood will stick around. It'll be there. The name will be there, but its productions and things like that are going to be limited.
No, I agree 100%. I don't know how we can get around all the changes that seem to be coming down the pipeline right now.
And I kind of like the changes because up until now, Hollywood has been controlled by the CIA too much, and too many stories are basically created by these government agencies.
I agree. Look at all the input that the latest Top Gun movie had from the Defense Department. Some general shows up and says, "We'll give you all the planes you want. We'll offer assistance in getting the script technically perfect. All we want is a little bit of input into the plot."
Yeah. We just want to be able to tell you very quietly what we wanted to see.
Absolutely. We don't want to interfere with the creativity. We just want to make sure things are accurate.
Right. Exactly.
So I don't know. I think something like this is the sort of thing that people almost anywhere can start using. This is the sort of thing that threatens legacy media to no end. But I don't know. It's the future. It's a tool. I don't know. It's not going to go away.
Yeah. Well, my biggest concern is trying to identify where the AI is and where the truth is.
Yes, that's not going to change.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a hard question. I like to diatribe about that for an hour. But we got 8 more minutes. Let's go into the final piece. Key it up for us.
Yes. This story was sent to me by Kathy.
Okay. Oh, how's she doing?
Oh, I don't know. She just sent me the story. She didn't reply back to my question, how you doing? So,
Oh, dear.
watching Kathy, reply back to my question, please. Anyways, yeah, she sent this, and I thought this is a good story to put out there.
This is the August 22nd Mungo Minds on BitChute post. Why do they want Canadians to know? What are we paying too much? That we are paying too much in taxes again. Sorry, I got that wrong. Here we go.
You're going to want to look at this. This is crazy. You know you pay too much in tax when National Post reporting Canadians pay more in taxes than food, shelter, and clothing combined. That was July 14, 2026. A semi-recent article. Now it's gaining headlines all over social media. But here's the thing, and this is why they want to get rid of me off of social media. Watch this. Average Canadian household spends more on taxes than necessities. The average Canadian household paid nearly $40,000 in taxes last year, more than the combined cost of clothing, food, and shelter, according to a new report. Right there, 6 years, 10 months ago, we covered the exact same story. Food and shelter combined. That is crazy. Look at that. We covered the same story 6 years ago, and they're recycling it again. And look at this one from 7 years ago. They will tax you to death. Cities are going broke. More Canadian tax hikes ahead. We've been warning you guys for years. Look, tax to death. Canadian government's attack on private sector. More tax hikes, 49% by 2024, 8 years ago. So what they're doing, and I'm noticing this a lot, and we made a video under our CID, Controlled Information Distribution playlist on the channel, where we were showing you 8 to 10 mainstream headlines that were making headlines all over social media. We took those headlines and we showed you guys that we made a video about it 7-8 years ago with the same lines, the same titles, the same context. They're recycling. And this is why they've been wanting to get rid of us off of social media for years, because we go back and re-reference what we said, and it's the same thing they're telling us again. You see what's happening here, folks? This is how they control the narrative. This is how they control what you're supposed to think. Now, the main question we need to ask is, why do they want Canadians to think that they're paying? They are. I'm not saying they're not. Why do they want us to think we're paying more in taxes than we are in food and shelter and basic necessities? They made the article 6 years, 8 months ago. Why are they telling us again? Why do we need to know this today? I know they are. We know that. They're taxing us to death. But why did we need to know this again 6 years, 8 months later? Let me know in the comments. Mike Martin's here. I have spoken.
So wild.
Why
do they keep telling us the same stuff?
Well, they wrote that script a long time ago. They might as well keep using it.
Yeah, they want us to break down in fear?
I guess so. Such a waste of time. But the thing is, they're using the same story again and again. So in a few years, we'll see that same story come up again.
To be fair, you've accused me of using the same story on tariffs week after week after week. And my problem with you doing that is, well, you're right.
Yep. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, that's a good story. I was happy when she sent it to me. I thought this is going to go up.
It's a good story. It makes you think. I don't think there's any easy answers for it.
Right.
So I don't know. Now that you've exploded my brain, what's on your plate for next week?
Well, right now I have a story for tomorrow morning. It's a half-hour story. I don't have really anything lined up for Tuesday at this point. I'm hoping to get the energy to put it all together. I took Thursday, Friday off, and it did make a difference for me. But again, I'm just getting a little burnt out from doing all this editing all the time, or gathering all these stories. I got to figure out a way to make it more exciting and faster again. The other thing is, maybe I need a new chair because this one's getting uncomfortable to sit in.
Ouch.
But
Much sympathy. So, are you doing any stories this week? You're doing one on Monday.
Yeah, I'm still trying to put together the 8 stories for Tuesday. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. After while I'm working on the story tomorrow morning, I'll be capturing some more off of the Facebook Reels, and then of course I'll get those edited. It doesn't take too long to do it. I just get bored with it. So if the weather is okay, if it's raining, then I'll definitely work inside. But if it's nice out, I have to be outside working. As a matter of fact, I spent a lot of time chopping firewood this last couple of days.
Oh, wow.
So I've got a pretty good stockpile. The wall, the first layer on the wall is about half full. So it's about a 6.5 foot high wall. It's over half full.
And it's getting, it's getting a time of year where you gotta chop the firewood for the winter.
Yeah, and I lucked out. There was some people, they cut down trees and they don't want to keep the firewood, so they just basically put it into logs that are a foot long, or 18 inches long, and put them on the side of the road for me, and I go there and I pick them up. So
that saves a bit of time.
Oh yeah, I don't have to have a chainsaw or anything like that. I just load up my back rack with it.
Yeah.
And haul it back, and I've been doing that for a few weeks here. And I'm just about halfway through that pile. Maybe not quite halfway through that pile, but I have a firewood that I have to continue splitting to make it smaller chunks.
Anyway, I have sympathy for you. I feel a little burned out too. We've been doing this for a long time.
Yep, but that's okay. I mean, everything will start to fall back into place again.
Absolutely. As for, let me hide this. As for Freedom Forum, we normally record every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on a variety of internet platforms, including the one you're watching. We republish next day with notes on our Substack page at chuckblack.substack.com. Most of our stories slide behind a paywall after a month, so if you'd like to maintain access, sign up for a monthly subscription. $20 a month, $160 a year. It entitles you to access archive posts, anything over a month old. Plus, it includes a lot of in-depth articles not covered in our regular stories. So sign up. Good stuff. My name's Chuck Black. I directed the show using StreamYards, which we recommend, both Richard and I, but only if you sign up using one of our links. We get a little bonus out of this at the end of each month to help defray some of our costs, and every little penny counts, especially these days when we're competing against the multinational conglomerate CTV and the $1.5 billion a year CBC budget. That's all for tonight. The show notes will be up on Substack tomorrow, and we'll be back next Sunday at 8 p.m. with another episode of Last Week Today. Good night, everyone. Richard, how'd I do?
Great. Just great.
Good night, Richard. Good night, everybody. We'll be back in 7 days.
Yeah. I'm just going to turn off my camera, Chuck, so I won't go away yet.